Welcome back to another episode of Intelligent Training Holistic Health. We are your hosts, James and Francesca, and today we are discussing cardio.
Yes. So today we're going to discuss what is the best cardio.
What is the best form of cardio? And the answer is it depends.
As always.
As always. So it really depends what adaptation you are going for. So it's very hard to say. If you are a sprinter, then the best cardio for you is going to be short, sharp sprints. But if you're a marathon runner, then the best cardio for you is going to be long distance.
Yeah. So
it really depends on the adaptation you are going for, and a lot goes into it.
So I think it would be
from a more of a general health perspective.
I think James you could dive into a ridiculous amount about cardio, and I think it would take a couple of episodes. But as looking from a beginner's perspective, let's just outline the different types of cardio that there are. And we're going to, I guess, when you're doing this, you're going to make it as basic as possible.
Yeah.
Just to give you a complete outline.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start from, so in your body, you have different energy systems. So you have your aerobic energy system, you have your glycolytic energy system, and you have your phosphocreatine energy system. So the aerobic energy system, this is the one that is most adaptable. So this is the one that you can change a lot. So this is why you have couch to marathon programs, and it's completely possible. Anyone can go from being on the couch, and anyone can go to running a marathon, because this energy system is so adaptable. But you don't have couch to sub 10-second 100-meter sprint programs, because this is very dependent on genetics. Okay, so the aerobic system is the one we can adapt the most. So this is more kind of like your steady state cardio. This is it's going for a nice cycle ride or a jog or swimming. This is mainly going to develop your aerobic system. So the aerobic system is, so how we're getting into, so if we're going to do, so you go for specific adaptations. So one of the adaptations you can go for just increasing your aerobic capacity would be to increase a certain part of the heart. So this is done by increasing what's called the left ventricle of the heart. So if you get enough blood into the left ventricle of the heart, you are going to increase its diameter, basically. And then this is going to allow you to pump more oxygenated blood around the body. So this is one way you increase your aerobic capacity. There is a lot more, there's a lot other ways you can do it. So this would be done via kind of steady state cardio. And then if you went into more of the high intensity cardio, you would still develop the heart, but you would develop the whole of the heart. So you'd be increasing kind of the heart as a muscle, rather than just trying to develop one specific area. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, that's just a lot.
Trying to take it as basic
as possible.
Yeah.
And then, so the aerobic system will also utilize all of the macronutrients. So we obviously have proteins, we have carbs, we have fats.
Yeah.
And the way this gets broken down and utilized. So this is the only energy system that can use all three. Whereas a glycolytic system, as it sounds, it uses glycogen or carbohydrates. And this is used for a much smaller period of time. And then the phosphocreatine system, this is used, for example, sprinting. So this only lasts around 10 to 15 seconds. And this just uses purely stored ATP. So this is the body's energy currency. So ATP is the adenosine triphosphate, and this is, your body has to create this to create energy. So the phosphocreatine system purely just uses ATP, and this can only be used for around 10 to 15 seconds. The glycolytic system, which mainly uses glycogen, can be around a minute. And then obviously the aerobic system can go as long as you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
So with that being the basics of the types of cardio, when you're looking at those types of cardio and you go to, let's talk about classes. I'm talking about spinning. I'm not talking about the resistance classes, forget those. But okay, you've got different forms of HIIT classes. You've got different forms of spinning classes.
Yeah.
Etc. Yeah. What are the main systems those classes are using, if any? Because let's be honest, HIIT classes are super popular and they stand for high intensity interval training. Are they doing what they say on the tin, or are they just using those buzzwords to advertise a class and actually it's not really doing that?
So if you wanted to develop, so for example, the high intensity interval training classes, the HIIT classes are really going to be a merge of everything. So you're not really going to develop one of those systems. So you're actually developing mainly all three of those systems. So you're not going to get the most out of one system. So they are just kind of doing everything, which isn't really very smart. So if you wanted to truly train, for example, the phosphocreatine system, then you would want to do something very short, very sharp, and have a long rest interval. So then you have time for the system to recover and then be able to go again. And
then just quickly, what's the benefit of that? So who would benefit from doing that type of training?
From the phosphocreatine system? So anyone who's looking to be explosive, athletes will work more in this range. It's good because you'll be tapping into more type 1 muscle fibers during this range or during this type of training. It's just very specific. So when you go to a HIIT class, you are just kind of, it's really a blend of everything. So it's really not developing anything. It's just doing a little bit of everything.
And so that's kind of similar to spinning, probably. I'd say maybe, I mean, I don't do spinning a lot, but the classes, you know, sometimes you're going quite high intensity and then you're coming down. It's basically your heart rate's doing a lot of the time the same thing as it does in a HIIT class that you attend, isn't it?
So once your heart rate is going all the way up to near kind of maximal, and then it's coming back down a bit and then going up maybe a little bit higher. So you are working through all the different kind of heart rate zones. So you're really not developing one system. So this is why I don't have an issue with classes.
No, I love classes. They're great.
They are brilliant. But you would never see an athlete doing a fitness class. Because it's a not specific enough adaptation.
It's general, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very general. So really, if you're trying to get just general results, or you're just going for general health, then completely that's fine. Then by all means do it. But if you're going for a specific adaptation, then you need to really tailor your training.
I think that's a good point to make, is when people say what's the best cardio, and of course it depends. But if people are looking just for general cardiovascular fitness, then I say by all means go to a class, because if you're looking for general overall cardiovascular fitness, chances are you might be a beginner, or you might just be somebody who enjoys certain fitness activities. So therefore, if that's you and you're not trying to train for a specific event or sport,
or trying to get a specific
adaptation, then you can approach your training a bit more general by going to a class. But I think if you are somebody who is training, say they're training for a certain event, and they need to adapt specifically in a certain system, that's when I would say, okay, now you're going to have to lay off the classes and focus more on a tailored approach for exactly what you're trying to achieve.
That's it. So if you're just going to a general class, then it is going to be a lot more general adaptation, which is completely fine.
Which is great for health and great for enjoyment aspect of keeping up with a fitness regime, right? So that's where classes are super cool. I love classes for that. That's why I still advocate teaching Zumba. You know, in the PT world, I'd say there's lots of people who are very specific about training. Oh, you should only train this way and blah blah blah. And the more knowledge you know, the more nuanced you get. And I think that's great, but it's not great for the general public. And that's why I love things like Zumba. No, you're not going to get you know, specific adaptations in it, and you're not going to get toned. It's not a resistance, but it's just fun. It's fun. It's a way, it brings your heart rate up and down. It gets you moving.
It's a fun way to do cardio.
Yeah, it's great. It's coordination. It's fun. It's like going to
it's like doing tennis. When you playing tennis.
Yeah, it's like going to a club and dancing all night.
Yeah.
And coming out feeling great and not having drunk except water, and just had a great time with friends. It's just a bit of lighthearted fun. And if you can move your body that way and that's what you enjoy, and that's the same with all classes that cardiovascular orientated, you know, just go for the enjoyment and go for the general health.
Yeah, for sure. But if you want to get more specific, so for example, if you want to enhance your aerobic system, this is one I'll do with a lot of clients, is I'll get them to do some sort of steady state cardio. So this will be cardio done on a bike, for example. You can go for a run, swimming, whatever it is, but then you try and keep your heart rate in a specific zone. So usually it'll be around 120 to 150 beats per minute. So a good way to think, so this will be kind of zone 2 cardio, and this is the best way to increase your aerobic capacity, or that first one I spoke about, the aerobic system that is the most adaptable. So if you can stay in around 120 to 150 beats per minute for around 30 plus minutes, then you're really going to start developing just in general overall aerobic capacity. So what this will mean for you, this will increase heart strength, this will increase the capacity of the blood to get pumped around the body, this will increase something called your mitochondria. So mitochondria are basically little organelles inside of every cell, and within the mitochondria is how you create energy. So if you can recall back to your old biology lessons, then you go through something called the citric acid cycle, or you might know as the Krebs cycle, and then that will produce electrons, and these electrons go through an electron transport chain, and then these will create energy, or ATP. So if you want to have more energy or be able to buffer more stress, then spending more time in this aerobic zone will allow you to do that. So you'll even create more of these organelles, more of these mitochondria, or they'll just get bigger and more efficient. So if these get bigger and more efficient, then you're going to become healthier, because you have cells that can produce more energy in a more efficient manner.
So that kind of goes into what the health benefits are, really. Cardiovascular.
So that'll go into the health benefits, and then just by doing more cardio, you're going to increase capillarization. So you're going to have more capillaries, you're going to have more blood flow to muscles. So obviously you can get more nutrients there. It's just going to be healthier in general. This will lower your heart rate. So the most time spent should be in this kind of zone 2 cardio, because think of your cardio as a pyramid, or think of your health as a pyramid, and the bigger the base of the pyramid, the bigger your pyramid can be.
So that's the aerobic.
So the aerobic is building the base.
Yeah.
So spend more time building the base, because then you can increase the total height of the pyramid.
Yeah. It's kind of the same with resistance training, isn't it? It's you build the base, you build the foundation, you go on the techniques, and then you can get more specific in the training zones and the areas that you're looking to improve. And then you can get a little bit more complex if you so wish to.
And a lot of things go into, so for example, if I got someone to do zone 2 cardio, so building the aerobic capacity, and I told them just to go running, but they are horrible at running, they have very poor technique, then their heart rate is going to be a lot higher than if they were just to sit on a bike and just pedal on a bike. Because you're so much more efficient on the bike, then your muscles know what they're doing. It's very easy. You can just sit there and just pedal, and then your heart rate will be in a lot better position. But if you are doing something you find very difficult and you have poor technique, then your body's going to require a lot more oxygen to get around the body to try and stabilize your joints. Your central nervous system's going to have to work a lot more, because your body's not used to this specific running. So this is why I see people going off running, their technique's horrible and they're all over the place. Their heart rate is going to be through the roof, and it's going to be getting a completely different adaptation. But if you were to sit on a bike, this is why I do my cardio on the bike, because it's so much easier. I don't have to think about it. I can just zone out, and it's easier for me to keep my heart rate within that zone. So then it's going to be a lot easier for me to build that aerobic capacity on a bike rather than it is running.
Yeah.
So if people wear heart rate monitors while they're running, you'll probably see us through the roof if you have poor technique. But if you have someone who has very good technique, their heart rate will be a lot lower.
Yeah.
Because efficiency plays a huge role as well. So the way you move plays a huge role in how much oxygen your body's going to need.
And I think if you are looking to do cardiovascular training in a more specific way, would definitely advocate wearing a heart rate monitor.
Yeah, and if you're gonna wear a heart rate monitor, get a chest strap, because the chest strap is the only way to really measure your heart rate. Because this actually, so there's difference between it's an electrical device, so it measures the electrical beat from your heart, so it actually measures your heart beat. Whereas kind of the watches, this is an optical measurement, so it actually just sends light through your skin, and then this determines pulse rate. So it's a little bit of a different measurement.
Yeah.
And because it has to go through your skin, if you have darker skin, then it can affect it. If you have tattoos, it can affect it. Obviously moves around a lot easier, and it'll affect it. So there's so many different things that can affect it. So having a watch, because it's an optical sensor, is completely different to having an electrical sensor. So an electrical sensor that you have by your heart is the best way to measure heart rate.
Mm-hmm. And with going into specific cardio like that, so we've gone through what the different zones are, what you can do, what the types of cardio are, what the benefits are health wise. I think then another question would be, how often should you be doing these things?
Yeah.
How often? I mean, depends.
Sorry, everyone. This always depends.
If anybody else, if you ask any question to
if someone gives you a straight answer, don't believe them.
Don't believe them, because it's always it depends.
Yeah, so sadly it depends. But especially for myself and my clientele, I'll try and get very good health benefits will come from if you can do 2 sessions or 30 minutes plus. I'll try and say 45 minutes plus if you can, but do 2 sessions of that around 120 to 150. So in that zone 2, building that aerobic capacity per week, you'll get brilliant gains from.
Yeah. So maybe that would be a good thing just to point out, what are the heart rate ranges that you need to stay within for zone. Yeah. So zone 2 and.
Yeah. So this is very different as well. So the common equation is 220 minus your age. I think that's done like 1970s or something. Someone came up with that, but there's no research behind that. So for example, for staying in zone 2, what I like to say to clients is you want to be able to just about hold a conversation. So it's not like you're like and you're trying to talk and you can't really talk. It should be uncomfortable to hold a conversation. So that's where you want to be. So that's kind of where you want to be heart rate wise. So the only way to really do it is to take your heart rate to its max, do like 3 or 4 sprints or something, find out what your max heart rate is, and then you can start working out percentages and zones from there. But as a general rule of thumb, just to get to zone 2 cardio, just get to a place where you can only just hold a conversation.
Yeah, that's a good rule of thumb.
Also, that's the best place I would say to be.
Yeah.
And do something that you find are very efficient. So if you're a swimmer, then swim, because you're already very good, and it's gonna be a lot easier for you, and it's gonna be more efficient for you to stay in that heart rate zone. Don't go running. If you're not a very good runner, don't try going running, because it's gonna be very inefficient. Your movement quality is not gonna be there, and it's gonna be a lot more difficult.
That's exactly what I was about to say as well, is that when you're looking at cardiovascular training, people then often ask, what are the best activities in order to do that? And I think a lot of people just think they have to go running or something.
Yeah, I hear that all the time.
Yeah. I better start running.
Running's the best way to lose fat.
Yeah.
And they say, why is running the best way to lose fat? And then there's no answer.
Yeah, this is another thing when I think it's a good thing to do, and I started doing it after you told me, is that because you always get that, don't you? It's like, do you remember I don't know when was it, the 70s or 80s or something, when fat became demonized, and so everyone had these margarine spreads instead of butter, and fat was looked at as bad back then. And then obviously research came out and you realized it's not bad, and it's actually really important. But obviously you still get people that are stuck back in that era who go, oh no, I didn't have that because that's quite fatty, that's quite bad. And then I used to just be like, okay, because I thought, oh, you just like, there's pick your battles. But then now I just go, oh, okay, why is it bad? And then people don't know how to answer it.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant because sometimes that's really good because then it makes them think and go,
yeah, we're just conditioned. So that's a good thing, is to ask yourself, if you think something is bad, ask yourself, why do you think that's bad? And even if you think something's good, why is that good?
Yeah.
And if you have a solid reason for it, then that's fine, then carry on.
Yeah.
But if you just say, oh, it just is, that's not good enough reason. So that's why you want to look into whatever you're talking about.
Yeah. And so I think that's actually a good point, is just to sway off one. We'll go back to what the best activities are for cardiovascular training. Of course, that is dependent. And of course, we'll go into the fact that we'll go into all of that in just a second. But in terms of fat loss, let's just quickly touch on fat loss, because that is another massive one that when people want to lose fat, their immediate response to doing that is to jump into some kind of cardiovascular training, which is usually running or something of that nature. So why is cardio not good for fat loss?
Cardio is not good for fat loss because the amount of energy you burn as a percentage from exercise per day is around 5%.
Yeah.
So 5% of the total calories that your body will burn per day is around 5%. So that's negligible. That's absolutely nothing. So I always say, don't ever do exercise to burn calories, because it is a complete waste of time. Do exercise for the millions of benefits that come with it.
But why do you think cardio has got more of a rep for burning fat or losing weight over resistance training? Why do you think people still, because it's still a really hard one, I think, to try and...
Because it gets your heart rate up, I'd say.
Do you think that's why?
Heart rate up, people feel a lot more hot, a lot more sweaty, and you will probably burn more calories while you are exercising, doing cardio.
Over resistance training. Yeah.
But resistance training, you will burn more in the long run. And then this is the same reason people say, oh, HIIT cardio is better because of the kind of afterburn effect than doing steady state. But if you just don't ever look at cardio or exercise for burning calories, because it is a complete waste of time. Yeah. All of that should be done through diet. Yeah.
And so, but how long would you, because just touching on the HIIT as well, people do that. They say, oh, if you haven't got enough time, do HIIT training.
Yeah.
Otherwise do, the general aerobic activity.
Yeah.
But first of all, it depends, because if you're just going for general health, either or is fine, right?
Yeah.
But if you have got 20 minutes to dedicate to cardiovascular training, what would you pick? HIIT. Yeah.
So I'd say HIIT, because it's such a condensed time. Within 20 minutes, you're not gonna create the adaptations to increase your aerobic base to a big enough degree, but you can do some damage. If you were to do HIIT, you can get a decent benefit from that, because you don't need as long a duration to get the adaptation. If you do your HIIT training, then you can go in, it's short, it's sharp, you get your heart rate right up, and you'll bring it back down, you get your heart rate right up, you bring it back down, and you're going to get a different adaptation. Okay, and then so for that adaptation, you don't need a longer period of time.
No.
So you're still going to increase VO2 max, you will increase aerobic capacity a little bit. It's going to be a more beneficial thing to do in 20 minutes.
Yeah. And then going back to what the best activities are for cardiovascular training, again, of course, it depends. Let's say we're talking about HIIT, because like you said, if you're not mechanically efficient at running, then chances are you're going to do some damage, more damage than good, trying to do some kind of sprinting, etc. if you're trying to do HIIT or whatever. So what would you say, let's talk about a beginner and they want to do some HIIT training, what would be the most safest, beneficial piece of equipment you could put them on where they're going to be able to have the best control and get the maximum benefits of that HIIT training?
I'll say a bike.
Yeah.
Always a bike. Yeah, it's just so easy. There's so the things that can go wrong are just minimized.
Yeah,
All
so
you're doing
stable.
is just pedaling. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can really,
And
you can go fast. Yeah, you can really go fast again without your body being so unstable that something happens.
Yeah, if you bring in external stability, so for a bike, all you're having to do is just pedal, so you can put a lot of power into that machine.
Yeah.
Because you're very stable. As soon as you start running, or even on a rower, you have to have very good mechanics to get on the rower.
Yeah.
And do it correctly. So anything where you can take out internal stability, so you're not having to stabilize yourself.
Yeah.
Then you can put down max power.
Yeah. And I'd say for aerobic activity, a bike's probably a nice, easy one anyway, isn't it? Because again, you can just focus on the heart rate zone rather than worrying about what your arms and legs are doing. I think that's the only time when I think classes like HIIT training, when you're trying to go all out with, I don't know what they do, burpees and all the other things. There's so many different variables happening at the same time. It's hard to focus on the task at hand of trying to improve the cardiovascular aspect of it. So I think
that's so true.
I think bike is a great one. I personally, so a lot of people go on the rower. I personally don't like the rower machine because I find it incredibly uncomfortable after a while.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so that's fine.
So it's always personal preference, I'd say again.
Yeah, and what you enjoy as well.
Yeah, totally. So I'd say there isn't a best machine or activity that you should do. It's never should do. I think it's always what are you good at, and what's the safest for the state you're in. So if you've not done any before and you're quite new to everything, I think some kind of stationary machine is really great, because then you're just focusing on that very thing in front of you.
And when we're talking about,
no, I was just going to say, but if you love running, by all means, go for it.
And when we're talking about different adaptations, so this is why people should split things like weight training and cardio. So a lot of people will go into the gym and they'll go on the cardio for a machine, for example, for, I don't know, 30 minutes, maybe longer, and then they'll go and do some weights. But that's two conflicting adaptations. So they both use different kind of pathways. So one, you're trying to obviously build strength, build muscle. The other one, you're just trying to increase aerobic capacity. So it's the saying that if you're trying to catch two rabbits, no, that's not, what's the saying?
I have no idea what the saying is, but I mean,
I'll forget it. But anyway, you can't. But anyway, you can't do two things at once, basically. So if you're going to do cardio and weights, especially if you're doing a decent amount of weights and cardio, try and split them up
on different days, or
just if you do weights in the morning and do cardio in the evening, for example, or if the better way to do it would be do it different days. Because they are conflicting adaptations. So instead of getting one really strong adaptation, you would get a mix of both. Okay, so that's why I always try and mix them up as well.
And that comes nicely into, I think, people who are doing resistance training but also would like to do separate sole cardiovascular training. How can they keep as much muscle as possible and add in the cardiovascular elements?
That's a big one. So a lot of people, if they're looking to gain muscle, a lot of people completely stop cardio as well because they think it's going to take away from it. But actually having a good aerobic base, like we said about before, will only enhance your ability to build muscle. Because by having more mitochondria in the muscle and more capillarization, then you're going to be able to get more blood flow to the muscle and be able to deliver more nutrients to the muscle, which is going to allow it to grow more. In between sets, if your aerobic capacity is greater, you're going to recover quicker, so you can get back into your sessions. If your aerobic base is good as well, then you're obviously going to recover in between sessions quicker. So having decent aerobic capacity is very important, even for muscle building.
And I think that's
adding the strength athletes or power athletes, because it's still the same muscles that are going to be regenerating, for example, your phosphocreatine system. So if your aerobic capacity is good, then that's going to help regenerate your phosphocreatine system as well. So they all work together.
I think that's it. a nice way to understand that when, I mean, of course, again, if you're not even if you are doing a specific sport, like you said, but when you're trying to approach your overall health and well-being and become fitter, healthier, etc., it's the same with nutrition. It's the same with anything. If you dive into just one camp, say the no cardio all weight training camp, or vice versa, then you're never really getting you're never getting the whole benefits of your health and wellness that you could get if you didn't dip into each of those things. And I think people who go down, exactly, and if your body is a whole system that works together, everything's connected, the more efficient everything is, the better it all works together. And so if you go down one route and one route only, then you are going to be great in that specific area, but then all the other areas might not function as well because you're not taking your attention to those as well. So I think it's great to be a bit more of a generalist with those things and dive into all the different areas, because I think you're giving your overall health a boost.
And and from what we said at the beginning, how different energy systems will use different energy substrates. So that's, like I said, the aerobic system will utilize protein. It can utilize protein. It will try not to. It will utilize carbohydrates and it will utilize fats. Whereas the glycolytic system and phosphocreatine system is only going to use, glycolytic system will only use carbs. And then a phosphocreatine system is going to use just ATP and creatine. So then you can devise your nutrition plan based on what energy systems you're using as well. So this is why people will carb up before races. Because if you're carbing up, you're going to be using your carbohydrates are the body's number one fuel source. So your body will use carbs over anything else if it can. But your body can only store a certain amount of carbs. But whereas your body can store unlimited amounts of fat.
Yes, it can.
So if you are going to be doing a race, then maybe carbing up a few days beforehand is going to be very beneficial, because that is the energy substrate that your body is going to utilize during that race. If you're going to go to the gym, or you're going to do 1 rep max deadlifts, or you've got a sprinting race, then maybe add some creatine into your supplementation, because then that's what your body's going to be utilizing. So try and think about the energy that you're consuming. Is that going to help your cardio as well?
And I also think when we're talking about general overall health and well-being, and that you should be doing different things in order to make sure that you're working all areas of your system. I think that's when it's great to understand. That's why specific training is so good, because what you can do is focus on your aerobic system for a while. If you're doing resistance training and then you want to improve your aerobic system, and you do a phase where you have just aerobic work in, and then perhaps you go into a new phase of training, perhaps you're doing a slightly different resistance training program that focuses on certain aspects, and then that complements really well with putting a little bit of HIIT training in. And so it's about, you don't have to do one thing, be married to it, and stay with that one thing your whole training life. It's about completely changing your approach in different, depending on different parts of your training in your life, so that you're always working through different.
And if you just by increasing your cardio in general is so beneficial, because it's gonna allow you, it's just gonna make your body so much healthier. So if your aerobic base, for example, is very large, then your body will utilize fat for a lot longer before it has to start tapping into carbohydrates. So if you want to burn fat, then having a good aerobic base is brilliant, because your body's going to keep burning fat, and then it will only tap into carbohydrates when it needs to. But if you don't have that aerobic base, then it's going to be a bit more of a mix, and the carbohydrates will be coming from muscle. So carbohydrates are stored in muscle, so it's going to start taking it away from muscle rather than burning it from fat. But if you're very efficient at burning fat, then you will burn fat a lot easier.
And what about, so I think that's also a good thing to touch on, is using, let's say, circuit-based kind of activities, you know, circuit training or metabolic conditioning classes that are now popular.
Yeah.
What other cardiovascular emphasis do they have? So what are they working really? What zones? And is it beneficial to do your cardiovascular training with the weights?
Can be, yeah. So for cardio, everyone thinks obviously heart, lungs. You think of kind of your circulatory system, but your muscular system plays a huge role as well, because that is obviously and that's where the ATP is going to end up. So the energy is going to go to the muscles in the end. So if you can for example, circuit training is really good because it will get your muscles more efficient at utilizing energy as well.
Yeah. Because I think what obviously what we've discussed is we've just gone very traditional on the cardio route of, you know, weights are completely separate and then there's your cardio and you can never link the both together. So I think people generally think of, like we just said, running, going on a bike, going on some kind of traditional machine, but actually you can use weights to train your cardiovascular system by doing those conditioning style workouts.
And that can be very important. So if you're like a fighter, for example, then it can be very beneficial because it's getting you to use your muscles a lot over a long period of time. So then they're going to get more used to being able to utilize that energy. And then that's going to allow you to be more efficient again. Yeah.
I think that's covered a lot of bases, you know.
I think that's covered a lot of very general bases. I think, like you said, if I do a solo podcast, I can dive.
So you have, how many blogs do you have on cardio?
I think I've got a whole, maybe like series. I've got a whole series, about 6, I think, in a series, 6 or 7 in a series.
Oh, should we put them in the show notes?
Can do.
Just if
depth, but yeah, it can.
They're really in depth. But if there's some of you listening that want to get into more detail and it's a little bit
substrate metabolism and break down each individual energy system.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about it. But yeah, that'd be worth it.
And then maybe for those people who enjoy that, you can do a solo podcast surrounding that a little bit deeper.
Yeah, for sure.
And a little bit more explanation, because
if there is anything specific you want to hear, then I can dive into that. Just drop us a comment.
Drop a comment in the questions, but hopefully that's given you some kind of basic understanding and also helped in order to allow you to be able to go and choose an activity and not feel like you have to run or you have to do something so specific in order to improve your general cardiovascular system.
So as a recap, there is no best form of cardio.
No.
Do whatever you enjoy. If you have a sport, then you can make it more sport specific. There are 3 different energy systems within the body. So you have the aerobic energy system, the glycolytic energy system, and the phosphocreatine energy system. So if you are trying to develop a specific area, then know which one of those you're trying to develop. The aerobic energy system, which most people know about, just as kind of your general cardio, this is the one that will adapt the most.
This is your bottom of your pyramid foundation.
This is the bottom of your pyramid. So the longer steady state, like going out for a longer run or a longer bike ride, this will develop very quickly. And this has the ability to adapt the most. And then think about the nutrition you're going to utilize for your energy work as well. So if you're looking to do something a bit more intense, then have more carbohydrates in your diet. If you're looking to do something very explosive, then maybe look at creatine in your diet, because then that can help. So just knowing the energy substrates the body will utilize once you're doing these activities is very beneficial as well.
Well, I think that's a
wrap.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, team. See you in the next one.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.